Hello and welcome to the RT Development Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Rodignol, and I'm really excited for today's podcast because I think this time of year you can start to feel the taste of baseball. It's closer than we think, and before we know it, well, the new year will be here, and then especially for our guys in California, will be starting up their season before we know it. And so I think if our guys or athletes in general don't attack this next couple of months, they're gonna feel it come the middle of February and March and feel left behind. And so how you set up these next couple of months can really whether it puts you in a really good spot going into the season, or it can put you in a spot where you're trying to play catch up. So today's goal with today's podcast is to provide some info of what the next couple of months should look like, and I'm going to help set the stage for things that for our guys, what we're going to be focusing on to help them get ready and be the best prepared that we're hoping that we want our guys to be, so that they put in all the work, they took out all the guesswork, and they just show up ready to play. And so now when the time of this podcast becomes live will be December 1st, which really is going to be pretty much 2 months until actual tryouts for our guys here in California, and 3 months till game time. So how you set up these next 3 months is really going to help you take that next step, and how you do it should help you kind of take a nice linear progression into the season. And so obviously not everything is going to be linear. There's going to be some ups and downs as you go through this process, and it's not like every week we're going to hit a PR, and hopefully your programming should be set up so that you're hitting PRs at the right time. But with that being said, there's going to be a progression leading you right up into the season and setting you up for wherever you need to be come the beginning of tryouts. And then for, like I said, guys here in California, they have about 2 weeks of practice. Then they have their first scrimmage game. And then from there, they hit the ground running, and it's game time. So December 1st is the day of this podcast for our guys. December 1st, or kind of our focus here is going to be strength. And so as we focus on that strength here in December. Also, our guys are on the throwing side are starting to ramp up. We're starting to touch the mound. For some guys, they may be going through a velo phase, but they're putting themselves in a position of high stress on both the strength side and the throwing side. And with that, the guys who are doing more of a velo phase are going to be doing a little less stress work on the strength side. And just depending on where guys are in terms of programming, those things are matching up. But at the end of the day, December we're going to be starting to increase the load on the throwing side and get stronger as we prepare our bodies for the speed work and the power work that we want to be able to display once we get into the season. So if you haven't started your programming, you haven't done your stuff that is preparing your muscles and your joints for the strength work that you're trying to build, then right now you should have already started. But if not, you need to be starting now. And so when it comes to strength work, we're talking on our big compound movements, we're talking 3 to 6 reps. That's going to be more of our strength rep range. And we're trying to hammer or focus on building that strength in these big compound movements. So for us, we're going to be our trap bar deadlift, our single leg variation, split squats, reverse lunge, split stance RDLs, things like that. But we're going to be really hammering the strength on those to prepare our body for what we're trying to now produce more force later on. And so right now we're in that December timeframe, we're building that foundation. Hopefully this isn't the time to start trying to get in shape. That's what the October, November timeframe is for, till you can get in shape build that capacity so now that you can work and hit the big stuff as you start to prepare for those higher loads. Now, if you haven't started, it's obviously you're a little bit behind, but with that, in these next 90 days, you can change a lot. And if you really attack the next 90 days, you can make a big difference in where you're at right now and where you are come March 1st or the middle of February when most seasons are going to be starting. So a little less than 90 days. But if you have a solid, for how we break down 4-week programs, if you have 2 to 3 solid programs and you crush it for the next, say, 10 to 12 weeks, you're going to make a big difference in your how prepared you are, your overall just physical preparedness, your strength, and whether you're a hitter or pitcher, exit velocity should be going up, and you should just have an overall change from where you finished your spring, fall. So how you attack that next 90 days is up to you. I think the biggest thing is having a plan, understanding where you need to be come March 1st, and then working backwards. For us, our athletes, we're going to work backwards and prepare for getting them ready to be on the field. And so we know strength in December. January is going to be more speed, power, and then early February is going to be purely speed, making sure our athletes are prioritizing the stuff they're trying to do on the field, and then we're doing the gym is more of an accessory at that time. Now, with all that, the biggest thing I would say is understanding where you're at. You can't skip steps. So if you haven't been doing the work right up to this point and you go try to just get into the speed work or skip some of the time where you're getting your joints and your muscles ready to go, then you're going to pay for it later on. So making sure you don't skip steps. And yeah, even though you may have a little less time, make sure you have a program that's built out and ready to put you in a position to go out there and be ready to withstand the stress of playing. And when I mean stress, when you're playing and you're putting stress on your body, you're putting stress on your joints. And so you have to prepare your body appropriately for you to be in a position to handle it. So that's talking just overall. I think the biggest thing as we kind of close out December is understanding this is where the highest point of going to be of throwing and training. And as we start to try to switch gears from ramping your heavier throwing period to a little bit less volume on the training side. So as you get to the end of December, you should be changing where your ramp up is and where the focus should be. And so if you have a program that should be programmed in for you, if you don't, you're doing it on your own, then that's where you just got to really make sure you kind of work backwards and know where you're at. Now, come January, as we start transition, you should be in your bullpen phase, right? For us, our guys have already started to slowly touch the mound come January, but come January is where you should be getting after it on the when it comes to pitching. This is where higher intent bullpens starting to work on what you're trying to, whether it be change or implement a new pitch, implement a new grip, whatever it is, you're starting to work on that stuff now to get prepared for the season. And so you've done all the other work to prepare your body for the demands of this. And with that, now you're starting to now try to execute it so that you have the confidence come February and March when it's time to show it off. Now, with that doesn't mean you're going to not do some of the movement work that you've been working on, hopefully in the October, November timeframe. But here you're just working on like movement patterns, arm action things, swing stuff, but it's just a small capacity compared to the high capacity of work they're doing with the main thing. When it comes to training, nothing is more important than specificity. Specificity is king. That's a big saying in the training world. And so when we get to this time frame, you need to work on the things that are going to help you actually perform your task or your skill. And so pitchers need to be throwing bullpens. Hitters need to start throwing or hitting at a higher intent, higher velo, if they have the access to it. Live ABs, things like that. For some of our guys, and I'm kind of taking a step ahead here, but some guys play tournaments in January, and whether they should or shouldn't, that's a different topic. But we need to make sure that they're ready for that. And so some of those guys have to start up a little bit earlier. And with that comes with the one, conversation, two, working backwards, knowing where our guys need to be, and we take that information and build that into their plan. So if a guy has to be ready mid-January for a tournament, we need to make sure they're built up to that and built up to how many ever pitches that they're going to be asked to throw. So now, a lot of times I'll hear guys say like, "Oh, I have a tournament in 2 weeks," and without having that preparation, right? And so with that, like, work backwards, know where you need to be, when you need to be there. Don't let it catch up to you. So kind of taking a step back, and as we talk about January on the training side, this is where we really are transitioning into the power and really focusing on power development. So yeah, we're still lifting in a strength, but the volume is a little bit down. We're really focusing on more building that, using that strength into power, or converting into power, using complexes by going to a heavier lift right into something quick and explosive. And when doing that, a lot of our lifts, we try to stay in like the 80 to 85 range. If you're using RPE, that might be like an 7 to 8 range. Something that's heavy, but you're not grinding through every rep and it's getting slower and slower and slower. We're trying to maintain somewhat close to the same bar speed. And so for us, if you're using one of our programs around that time, you're going to be using a lot of VBT, which is just measuring how fast you're able to move the bar. And that's going to give us feedback on each rep. It also is going to drive intent to what the athlete is doing. But come that January timeframe, end of December, January, depending on when you're at, that's going to be our focus. How quickly can we move a heavy weight, driving it with intent? And for our guys, they're going to be using something to track it. So one, they're being honest with themselves. We see it all the time, like, oh, that was light, but the bar's moving at 0.4, which in VBT is going to be really, really slow. So, yeah, we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to know what we're trying to accomplish, and stick to what we're trying to accomplish, and try to and make sure our ego stays out of the way. When it comes to our med ball stuff, our plyos, like, they're going to be more explosive. On our med balls, we're trying to let it rip, trying to throw it as hard as we can, stuff that's going to be a little bit lighter so that we can get the body moving a little bit faster and integrating that speed. If we want to train specificity like we talked about earlier, then we have to practice moving fast and throwing it hard. And so when we get to this time frame, that January, our guys are throwing lighter implements with the med balls. The volume is down because the main throwing should be coming from the baseball, but with that, we're still throwing med balls, but just lighter. This is where we use our 2 and 4 pound med balls so that guys can really work at a higher speed, higher velocity. And with that, we're tracking it with the radar gun to make sure that they're able to, one, monitor fatigue, two, give them something to track and push intent, and also push themselves to be better each rep. On the plyo side, we're going to be doing more repetitive jumps, like consecutive jumps, depth jumps, things like that, where we're having to be explosive, our ground contact time is slower or quicker. Sorry. So it's little time on the ground, being able to repeat it, and focus on how quick and fast you can move through those plyos. And it's going to be different variations. It's going to depend on skill level of the athlete, training history, and just what type of athlete they are. Our more fast twitch guys might be something that's a little bit slower, a little more powerful, and then our other guys are going to be something we're trying to speed them up a little bit more than they typically are. And so, like our more springy guys, we might use like a dumbbell drop jump where they have to drop it, explode out of the bottom, things like that. But we're just ingraining that pattern so that they're moving faster, more focused on that power side, and really starting to put all the work that they did in the early off-season months of fall and winter, and now displaying it into their speed and power. As far as, and that's kind of what we already talked about, but as the throwing intent increases in this January timeframe, we got to make sure the volume of training on the strength side or gym side is going down. You can't just increase on both sides. If you have a cup and you're trying to fill that cup with water or energy or whatever it is, you only have so much energy for each thing that you're trying to fulfill. So from a throwing, a sprinting, a training, whatever else that you're being asked to do, in terms, if you're in school, you have to also have schoolwork and all that. You can only fill your cup so much if you overfill that cup, your body's not going to be able to, one, recover, two, respond to what you're trying to do. And then now you're going to get negative adaptations. Your body's going to adapt to what you put it through. But if your body's not able to respond or recover, then those adaptations aren't going to be good. So when we're trying to work speed work and we're not moving as fast as we want, or where body's fatigued, so we can't move at a faster rate, and you're ingraining a slower pattern, you're not going to get the results that you're looking for. So remember that you only have so much that you can give. And so understanding where you're at in the off season, that's going to dictate what your focus or how much focus you're putting into one thing. So January timeframe, you're going to be high on the skill work and lower volume on the strength side, gym side. The things that are, not going to say less important, because they're still very important. It's just understanding how much of what you should be doing. And to that point, early off season, like, you're going to be working through some fatigue. You're going to be pushing your body through maybe a little bit more than it can handle. And you're just, because your body's going to adapt to that, and the adaptations are going to start to come through. With that, when it's time to really work at that high speed, you're not trying to work through that fatigue anymore. You've already improved your capacity earlier on. So wherever you're at now in terms of fatigue, like, we can't be trying to push through that and push the needle on both ends, so that we're just working slow or not being able to produce power the way we're trying to. With that, I think it's really easy to not be honest with yourself through this time, for us. And this is maybe a topic for a different podcast, but like how we use technology and data, but to make sure we're getting the adaptations that we're looking for, or also the results we're looking for in terms of each rep. We're using radar guns on the throwing side with all of our reps to make sure, if we're supposed to be at a certain percentage but we're not getting that, or we're supposed to be around a certain velo and we're not seeing that, why? We got to look into what's going on and why aren't we executing what the number that we're trying to execute. Same with our plyos. In terms of the strength and speed work, we're using our force plates to track our athletes and Are they making progress in the right direction? Is there something we need to adjust so that we can see these force plate numbers go up? But that stuff's all information that we're taking and tracking to make sure we're going in the right direction. So we are being more athletic, more explosive during this time. And it's really easy to guess. And for years we guessed, but now having access to the data and follow the data, it gives us instant feedback of where we're at, what we're trying to accomplish, and then more importantly, being able to make changes when we need to make changes. Now, the data itself doesn't tell us why something is happening. I would say from a fatigue standpoint, it does. Like if the numbers are really down and you're just pushing on both ends, sure, fatigue is going to kill your numbers, both velo-wise, power-wise, force plate numbers, things like that. But making sure that we are tracking it so we can make the immediate changes that we need, and us as coaches digging into the information and seeing, one, where we can make changes, two, from like a skill side, we look at the actual execution of the movement and where is it a fatigue thing or is something off movement wise. So that's where also camera comes in and being able to slow it down and look back at it. So with that, kind of just backtracking a little and going through January, this is the time where we're transitioning from strength into more power-based stuff, higher velocity med balls throws, quicker plyos, and focusing on just speed and how quickly we're able to move the weight. Now, it's not just pure explosiveness here on that side. We're still working in like a moderately heavy weight, but something that we're able to move relatively quickly without the bar slowing down. During this time also, the throwing intent should be increasing while the training volume should be going down. And yet we're still doing some of our prep work, our pattern work, but it's a very, very small amount of volume, really, really focusing on preparing us for just what we're trying to ingrain once it's time to actually do the skill itself. And remember, especially this time, like if you want to get better at something, specificity is key. So if you want to get better at hitting higher velo, you need to practice hitting higher velo. If you need to want to throw harder or clean up how you move on the mound, you need to spend more time on the mound. For our guys, come January, we're going to be spending 2 to 3 times a week on the mound. Not every day is a high intent day, but the more time we can spend on the mound, the better. Our pro guys might be spending 3 to 4 times a week on the mound, and it all varies. The volume, the intensity, obviously the high days are the high days, but just even those low intent days, being able to feel the slope and get accustomed to the slope is going to pay off long term. And so the biggest thing is with that is having your radar gun and understanding what days and where you're supposed to be on each day so that you can execute and be where you need to be. And it's really easy on those recovery days to be like, oh, I feel great, so I'm going to push it. And that's how you start to kind of go backwards. So kind of got away from it there for a second, but understanding, just have something that tracks it, and the days that are supposed to get after it, and the days that are not, you're going to be backing off. You got to be honest with yourself and stay to what you're supposed to be doing. So now that kind of brings us into February or month 3. Some guys who might not be, depending on where you are in the country, your schedule might be pushed back a little bit. You can adjust the months based off of that, right? For us, like I've said, California, February is when our guys pretty much start. I know some places on the East Coast, they're starting closer to April 1st. So you would just adjust the months back from there. So everyone's going to be a little bit different. The timeline's the same. Which month it starts in is going to be different for everyone. But for us here, come February or month 3, this is where high intent bullpens, full high intent / live ABs are starting to happen. Also, February is when our tryouts here are happening. So guys that should be worked up to that, ready to go. Same with the hitting side. They should be ready to face breaking balls and off speed. They should be ready for velocity. But either way, they're ready to go on the side. They did all the work early on to prepare so that they're not just kind of jumping into something that their body or their skill specific isn't ready for. So if you haven't been throwing bullpens and you're gonna then jump right into live ABs, probably not a good idea. If you haven't been doing certain work in the cage and now you're gonna jump into live, I don't think one's a good idea. Two, I don't think your timing is gonna be on point, and you're not putting yourself in the best position to succeed. In terms of this is a little bit, it changes every year, but something I think where guys get in trouble is they're not ready for come this time where you're doing a lot more with practicing every day, having to throw more, plus especially guys that are two-way guys, having to play the field and throw bullpens and live at-bats, and they haven't worked up the capacity. So early on in the season is when they start, their arms are barking at them. They're going through some pain, things like that, because they haven't done the stuff on the front end to get them ready for all this added volume that comes out of nowhere. And I don't think there is a way to actually prepare the body for it in terms of like, not all of a sudden you're going to be able to start just practice at the same speed plus all the extra throws with, even just like if you're an infielder, first and thirds, rundowns, bunt plays, things like that, all this extra throws that start happening out really fast because you're trying to prepare for the season. So understanding, one, at least you want to be as prepared as you can. Two, hopefully you've built up some volume to handle it a little bit. I mean, there's gonna be some extra soreness coming in, and that's to be expected. But if you haven't built up any capacity, that's where the injuries happen fast. And that's why in spring training every year in the first month of the season, that's why in the big leagues, that's why injuries are at the highest at that time, because guys go from little volume to then the higher volume and increases really fast. And that's why even with our pro guys, we try to make sure we ramp them up appropriately so that they're ready come spring training and not trying to play catch up once they get to spring training. So back to kind of like the main point. So this February or month 3, we're high intent, live ABs. Hitters are ready for live ABs. But now we're talking the training side. This is going to be a lot more reactive sprint work. It's going to be a lot more continuous jumping. It's going to, on the weight room, it is going to be more like speed-based lifts. Like I said earlier in the last part, this is where we use our VVT, make sure the bars are moving at a certain speed and make sure that there's intent behind our athletes when they're moving the bar. Just kind of going through the motions or trying to move a bar fast without actually having something that measures it and gives you instant feedback can make you, one, not know exactly where you're at. Two, it keeps you or has you guessing. And so that ability for us to give our athletes that instant feedback and have intent and try to, okay, that one was, especially in the speed phase, that one was 1.0. This one I'm going to try for 1.1, whatever that is. But it gives them that ability to compete with themselves. And I think especially this time of the year, in terms of like that month 2, month 3, when you should start to feel that competition come in. Competing with yourself and your bullpens, competing with someone else in terms of bar speed, trying to throw the med ball harder than someone else with that. And that's why we use the radar guns. But come February, that's where we got to start really getting into that competition mode, really trying to feel those juices flowing. I mean, like if you're not starting to build up that competition inside during this time, and some guys are able just to turn on when the lights turn on, and the most important thing is being able to turn on when the lights turn on. But I definitely see our best players turn it on in the weight room in terms of competition, competing with themselves, tracking everything they're doing, but also competing with the guys next to them. And not only does it keep it fun, especially after a long off season and you're starting to feel the end effects of the off season, ready to get back out there and start playing, but it also keeps the competition juice is flowing, but it also helps our athletes get better, and that's what the most important thing is. So making sure that we are preparing our bodies for the demands that we want it to be at come this time. Like January, we start doing some flying work in the sprint work, but come February, we really should be doing a lot more top end speed, preparing the body for moving as fast as possible. And with that, I think just like anything else we've already talked about, the volume in the training has to come down. The training of the skill side training is going to increase. And one other thing, as we get towards the end of this time, we start to kind of transition into our in-season training. And that's something for a different podcast that we can get into. But we have to really make sure that we're programming appropriately and training appropriately to prepare the body to withstand the demands of the sport. But then also, once we get to that time, we got to remember what's the number one goal. Now, this doesn't mean come that month 3 that athletes aren't PRing something in the weight room, but the VBT is giving us feedback of where those numbers are. So, if our athletes are training the right way and they're able to still move the bar at a fast speed, the speed that we're looking for, they can still see increases in the weight side, but that's not the number one focus during that time. And that doesn't mean that you're not still pushing it. It's just understanding what the focus of the gym should be. And that, like I already said, it's the speed side. It's the moving the bar fast. It's training the body to move at the speed that we're trying to go out there and, for a lack of a better word, replicate come game time. So to kind of just give a little review, month 1 is strength, starting to ramp up the intensity of the throwing, getting ready for the mound, in potentially being on the mound. The volume is kind of in the middle because you've already done all the preparation on the other end, in the front end, I should say. Month 2 is going to be more power-based, higher intent throwing, hitting, closer to game speed without hitters or live pitching, lowering the volume on the training side, getting ready, or just understanding that the focus is now the skill work, the training is the training. And then the last month, we're really hammering the speed work, while the skill work is going to be as close to game-like as we can be, and we're trying to just get our body used to competing in the on the training side for the demands of the game. Now, if you haven't taken these steps or prepared appropriately to this point, the biggest thing I can say is don't just try to jump to where you're at and try to jump ahead. You need to make sure you take the appropriate steps to prepare your body to get to where you're trying to get. You need to work backwards and understand, okay, this is where I'm at. This is the time frame I have and where I need to be, and then kind of build a plan based off that. For our athletes, let's say if they were to come in and start today, they would start to build capacity just for maybe a shorter window and kind of condense each program of these factors and condense them into shorter blocks. Now, I wouldn't say that's ideal, but that's how we would make it work and do what we need to do for our athletes. So just understanding where they're at, what they need to do, and then work backwards in their time frame that they have. So I hope your off season's off to a good start. I hope at the time of this release, December 1st, you're kind of aligned with where the time frame of this little timetable that I've laid out for you. If not, understand where you're at, work backwards, and build out a plan. If you need help, that's what we're here for. Our athletes have a plan set back from, or working backwards from February and March and February for tryouts, March for game one. And so we have a plan that's working backwards and preparing our guys come the start of the season. So with all that, I hope that helps. I hope this gives you at least a outline of how things should be and how you can set up your stuff if you're not training with a coach or training with us. If you have any questions or need help going forward, please make sure to reach out. And if you ever want to reach out to us, you can always find us at rossistraining.com. If you are on Instagram, you can DM us. But that's all I got for today. I look forward to the next podcast. And if you have any questions or any suggestions on things you want to hear on the podcast, please make sure to reach out. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. Until next time. Bye.